What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. In OTAs, we officially had our first open practice to the media, so we got a ton of reports, a ton of different things that were happening from all over the place. So I just want to recap some of the major highlights, and I think between Nick Faria and Robbie Sabo, I put together a pretty streamlined list of the major events that were going on that we should at least be aware of early. So let's kick this off with perfect attendance. So Aaron Glenn mentioned this during his press conference the other day. Maybe it was yesterday. Nonetheless, he mentioned over the first 2 days, if it wasn't perfect attendance, it was extremely close. I love the fact that everybody is bought in, right? We talked about Garrett Wilson, for example, and his change of heart when it's come to his contract extension. Sauce Gardner talking about his extension. The only thing left to really round out, people that were feeling like things were extremely lackluster would be Breece Hall jumping on board about wanting to get a contract extension. Obviously, Jermaine Johnson, he's been involved and actually was noted that he was off to the side, still going through rehab, and I'm not going to press the issue, right? Even if it takes up until, a couple weeks before the season starts or anything for us to hear about him really revving up and getting going. We don't want to have to force the issue and then get into a Jordan Travis, and I know the injury situation isn't really the same, but you don't want to get into this problem area where you start forcing and rushing guys to get back, and then you're just extending the injury even further, right, and actually creating even further complications. But with that said, this clearly shows that the team, UDFAs, draft picks, incumbent players that are returning, and not only that, but disgruntled people as well. People are coming in, and at the bare minimum, this signals that they're willing to give this coaching staff every opportunity to prove them wrong before they start making huge business decisions for themselves, right? So when we take a look at the players, right, and talk about breakouts or just guys that you want to know about, we have to start with Justin Fields. And everybody's relatively called this an up and down day for him, right? I think inconsistency has really been the name of the game for him today, although he did have really strong showings in like these 7-on-7 periods, which really should be an offense-oriented type situation. But all in all, his scrambling ability was highlighted. You heard Quentin Williams talking about it during his press conference. Watching him move and watching him go, it's a different level of speed, seeing him play out there. And so in a environment right now where it's non-contact, you don't really expect there to be a ton of those situations where you're seeing him extend plays and different things like that. They're going to have to try to keep things in structure, keep things within a certain element of timing. And so I'm not mad at the scrambling by any means, but when it comes to him as a thrower, which most of us are going to hype on, that's going to raise some of the red flags for people that don't think this was a smart signing, or at least that we still should have been looking significantly elsewhere, right? Hesitant in throwing on a number of occasions, and I think when you take a look at some of the reports that the offensive line was kind of getting worked over throughout the course of the day, it was raining, we don't have pads on and stuff. It much like the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl being events that really highlight these defensive guys, OTAs phase 3 of OTAs is essentially going to be the same thing, and that's the frame of mind I want you guys to work with, right? From an offensive lineman's perspective, it's very hard or very easy, I guess you can take it, for the defenders to be slippery, you not be able to land your hand where you want them to on the chest plates and kind of guide and take control over of situations like that. So it makes sense. He's being rushed. There's not a ton he can do. He's still trying to pick up the scheme and what's expected of him and all these different things. So it's going to take a bit of work, but he was called out as being the first person to enter the building over the first 2 days, and I think nobody's going to question the work ethic, right? And he's going to have guys that are going to directly hold him responsible, like Jeremy Rucker, like Josh Myers, like Garrett Wilson. So we want to look at these days where he starts to progress significantly enough, right? More balls are landing in the weapon's hands as opposed to hitting the field. You're seeing him understand the timing and the nuance of how we want to attack the defense. And ultimately, you start stacking a couple of these good days together. And then there were some accuracy stuff that was put out there. And he's not known to be the most accurate guy. Even though he jumped up with the Steelers, I think it was around 67% completion percentage, somewhere in that ballpark. But he did miss an open throw versus a two-stone smart, which was called out. But I don't think you should draw any major conclusions from anything, whether it was an elite day for somebody or whether it was a terrible day or, up and down type situation. Just something to monitor and, keep on the hard drive, if you will, who's continuing to improve or do better and who's kind of struggling. Now, when it comes to on the defensive side of the guy, Will McDonald was far and away identified to be the best defensive player on the field. So much so that it was called out again during Aaron Glenn's press conference. He had to hype up the fact that Will McDonald walked into this new year 15 pounds heavier. So by my recollection, he should be somewhere around 250-ish pounds now, if that's true. But he hasn't lost any of the speed that really made him a dynamic threat from last year and really just his scouting report coming into the league. And he was really deemed to just be unstoppable, unblockable, I guess is the better word, over the course of this entire practice. And that's exactly what you want to hear, right? This is a guy that can be the 1B to Jermaine Johnson's 1A, if you will. And maybe he even supersedes him in that capacity while stepping up his run game, and Jermaine Johnson just still ends up being that, capable double-digit sack guy, but also the elite run stopper. And now you have two opposing demons on both sides of the defensive line. When it comes to the weapons, Alan Lazard, Jeremy Ruckert, we got to give them their kudos when necessary. In Alan Lazard's case, the droppies, right? The Butterfingers, we know he's known to put some balls on the grass, and it's not ideal. But in addition to bringing a ton of mistakes with him, it was at least noted that when he was targeted, there wasn't anything hitting the grass for the day, which is a huge plus. And in Jeremy Ruckert's case, pretty much the same thing, right? They were both active and involved over the course of practice that the media could see, and nothing hit the ground. And I think in Jeremy Ruckert's case, you get excited about at least seeing his involvement in the offense, because for having 3 years within this franchise and not to have a single touchdown, where basically the offense has been begging for somebody to step up, is a little disappointing. So take the inklings of success where we can get them, and we'll see if these end up translating to game days. Now, Rashad Weaver, he was one of our free agent signings. A lot of the free agent class was lackluster, I think, in many people's mind, but this is somebody that could be working his way into being a significant part of the rotation. He was called out for having multiple pressures and or sacks on the day, and probably the next best person outside of Will McDonald from a pass rush standpoint. So you love to see that. And then Stone Smart, underrated gem here, right? I'm curious where he ends up falling on the depth chart, because Jeremy Ruckert at least has some run blocking, big playability to him. He also still offers the athleticism, so technically he could break out in any given season as a receiver. But in Stone Smart's case, not so much of a run blocker, but definitely a stronger receiving threat on paper, at least seeing the times where he stepped up for the Chargers last year. And during this practice, it was called out that even when he wasn't target, he just seemed to be consistently open throughout the day. We talked about the errant pass from Justin Fields earlier when he was open, but this is a guy that could be a sneaky favorite when we want to go pass heavy in occasions where it calls for it, and he could be a guy that gets called upon to get some more snaps than expected during certain game matchups. And then from the kicking competition standpoint, Anders Carlson, we have Caden Davis as well, or Cade Davis. But it looks like Carlson may be the early leader here, right? From everything that I've seen. He went 3 of 4 on field goals today, had multiple kicks made from over 50 yards and a of course, all of that in the rain. And in Davis's point, he made all of his short to intermediate field goals, from my understanding, but he couldn't quite strike it from outside of 50 plus. So who knows where they're going to lean on it, right? But I think you take the guy that maybe he misses the occasional intermediate one, as long as he's basically perfect from short, you'll live with that. If he gives you the ability to be able to hit some 55, 56, plus yard situations. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm sure each guy will have a strong day or not, but Carlson also got a chance to play, I feel like a bit last year, or at least maybe I'm thinking about the kicking competition over the course of the off season. So we're at least a little bit familiar with what the game is. It's kind of his job to lose, if I had to imagine at this point in time. But let's see how things play out. Let me know what you guys think about OTAs. If you've heard any other reports that we should need to know and are intrigued with, drop it in the comments for me. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.